free citizens of the world, do you wish for the truth?
Go to yourselves! Because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth. But man, you're never going to get any truth from us. We'll tell you anything you want to hear. We
should have bombed somebody in Iran, then we'd bring them to the table, just like President Nixon did to the Vietnamese.
Nobody ever gets cancer in Archie Bunker's house. And no matter how much trouble the hero is in, don't worry, just look at your watch. At the end of the hour, he's going to win. We'll tell you any shit you want to hear.
Well, a militia group linked to terror being backed by Iran setting up camps on American doorstep.
Where are you going? You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You're dressed like the tube. You act like the tube.
Shadow of a doubt that Iran will take a nuclear weapon. They will use it to wipe our ally Israel off the face of the map, and they've stated they will use it against the United States.
Turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off.
Container could kill 1 million people.
They're at war now.
The attacks are connected to Al-Qaeda, but is Iran pushing the terror button?
For several years, according to U.S. military leaders, Iran has provided training, funding, and lethal arms to jihadists killing American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. Are those acts of war?
They have been continually. They just tried to plan an attack here in this country, killing the Saudi ambassador. They've been at war with us since 1979. The IEDs that have killed so many soldiers, they're manufactured in Iran. Iran is not any other country. It's a country that is ruled by the equivalent of Al-Qaeda on top of this country.
This alleged Iranian terror plot to kill the Saudi ambassador, the FBI reported today, is really quite something. It reads like any one of the 419 scams in my spam folder, meets an episode of 24 or Breaking Bad, meets Yellow Cake and the run-up to the Iraq War. Is this real life or some Bay of Pigs pre-election year hallucination? Folks, stop and think. Setting aside the long track record of lies by the US and Israeli governments, just ask yourself these questions. Why would Iran want to assassinate the Saudi ambassador? Iran and Saudi Arabia are friends. Ambassadors are not decision makers. They are glorified messengers, and in these days of instant global communications, no longer enjoy the autonomous plenipotentiary powers they did in the days of sailing ships. There is no reason to kill an ambassador because another one representing the same exact government policies would arrive the very next day. Why would Iran involve Mexican drug cartels? Drug cartels are great at smuggling and slicing up competition and informants with chainsaws, but are not known for skills at diplomatic assassination. Why do such a pointless killing inside the United States, knowing the US is looking for any excuse at all to launch a war in Iran? People, the US and Israel are in a panic. Occupy America is growing, and the corporate media are unable to get a handle with which to ridicule and dismiss it. In desperation, the plan is to launch a major war with Iran, which will mean war with Russia, then use that resulting world war to demand the American people forget all about Wall Street's mortgage-backed security fraud, all about the ruined economy, all about the other wars, all about the lies, salute the flag and throw your money and our children into the bayonets of Israel's enemies on command. Because that's what worked the last 2 times. And the only people who can stop this are you. Terms that you know this Iranian plot is total bullshit, and you refuse to fight any more wars to save Israel or to save Wall Street. To delay is to lose. If we do not choose to fight against these money junkies now, we will soon have no choice but to fight for the money junkies from now on. If they get this war they want launched, none of us will ever live to see a time of peace again. Is that the world you want to leave to your children? Get angry, make noise, be heard, be seen, be a member of the human race. Do the right thing.
For most Americans, the story begins in 1979 with the Iranian Revolution and the hostage crisis. A group of revolutionary university students took over the American embassy in Tehran and held 52 diplomats hostage for 444 days. To help burn this into the American narrative, the news show Nightline was created with a nightly tally of the number of days since the crisis started. But to really understand, we have to go back to 1953, which is where the story begins for most Iranians. This was the year that the U.S. overthrew Iran's democracy and installed the Shah, a pro-U.S. dictator. In 1951, Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh was the first elected official who was appointed as Prime Minister of Iran by popular demand. He saw that the wealth needed to build Iran was leaving the country, because over the past 50 years its vast oil reserves were under British control at the hands of the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, later to become BP, or British Petroleum. So Mossadegh became hugely popular for nationalizing the oil industry and taking back the oil. Hugely popular at home, but quite unpopular with the British government. The newly formed CIA was sent to engineer a coup, codenamed Operation Ajax, and autocratic over his 25-year rule. He instilled fear in the population with a secret police known as Savak, created by the American CIA and Israeli Mossad, that tortured and imprisoned those who dared to dissent. He crushed all political opposition. Troops were sent to massacre demonstrators. He pushed a white revolution to modernize and westernize the country, giving women the right to vote and other reforms. But ultimately, he served the elites and created a huge economic gap for the poor masses. Powerful religious leaders saw that he was forcibly trying to rid Iran of Islam in a country that was 90% Muslim. One of the Shah's leading critics, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, was arrested and imprisoned for 18 months. After his release in 1964, Khomeini was sent into exile for 14 years. From abroad, he continued his anti-US, anti-Shah campaign through sermons on cassette tapes that made their way back into Iran and circulated as people copied and shared them. By the end of the 1970s, things had gotten so bad that major protests and the violence that followed were becoming a regular occurrence. The Shah declared martial law and banned demonstrations. This resulted in a huge protest and a general strike that shut down the economy. Soon over 2 million people flooded a public square in Tehran.
Thousands of protesters have taken to the streets of Iran to continue the anti-government demonstrations that shook the central government during the Green Revolution in 2009. Crowds marching to the Azadi Square have been met with violence and tear gas unleashed by Iranian security forces in an attempt to prevent a rally similar to that in Tahrir Square, which toppled the Mubarak regime in Egypt. Opposition leaders Hossein Mousavi and Mehdi Karoubi have been placed under house arrest. Meanwhile, activists carrying canned food and warm clothes are planning to spend the night in the streets and have issued statements declaring they're ready to die for their freedoms.
You are free to do as we tell you. You are free to do as we tell you.
To the President of the United States of America, we are anonymous. We would like to ask you, are you happy with what you have allowed the United States to become? The entire country a war zone. People standing up for their rights and the city governments allowing the brutal beating and arresting the citizens across America. By allowing this to happen, you are a disgrace to the presidency. Any past president would put their political careers aside and focus on the city streets of his own country. So far you have done nothing about the thousands of people arrested in the city streets for exercising their First Amendment rights. Because you are too busy campaigning for your second term as president. Stop and listen to the people you took an oath to uphold. Stop treating the people of America like terrorists with the building of FEMA camps to house Americans that stand up against political control. Mr. President, you had a dream of change when you were first elected, but clearly you have sold out to the corporate injustices that every American involved in the Occupy movement are speaking out against. You, Mr. President, are a failure to America. In fact, you are building an army of angry Americans that will not allow the government to control every little aspect of their lives. It is only a matter of time before the people of America turn the tables and focus their revolution on true freedom, and they will fight for it. By allowing the indefinite detention bill to pass, you will turn every citizen of America into a soldier, and the people of the United States will seek justice. America is not a war zone, but you are going to allow it to become one if you do not address the issues at hand. This is a message that will not be unheard. Mr. President, if you pass the indefinite detention bill, you will be throwing the United States Constitution out the window, and by doing so will only result in the failure of the United States. There are not enough people in the U.S. Armed Forces to stop every American citizen that will be closing in on the government buildings if you do not put the U.S. Constitution first. By allowing this bill to pass, you will make every American citizen anonymous. And for that injustice, the people will rise against you and scream, "Give me freedom," or "Give me death." We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!